Hi everybody, it's Elaine Spaker from Tanglewood Nature Center. I'm here with you live to talk about our smallest creatures at Tanglewood, at least the ones we have on display that we know about. So you have to use your magnifying eyes here and be patient with me. It's one of my favorite creatures at Tanglewood because they're so important. And even though they're really small, they're pretty mighty and they do a lot of good things for us. So today we're talking about honeybees. So honeybees, well, I have our observation hive right here, and I'm going to point out some things in the hive that are going to hopefully fascinate you. Just a little background. We, at Tanglewood, I got into honeybees because I was inspired by our beekeeper. His name is John Schlechter, and he is a rock star as far as I'm concerned because he's our longest running volunteer that is still active. He's been at Tanglewood for 30 years. He was at the old Tanglewood and he had a beehive there. And obviously he's still with us, and we have the observation hive here. So John takes care of our bees, and he's a beekeeper here and he's a beekeeper at his home in Big Flats. So he does it for fun, and I'm sure a lot of people think he's crazy because sometimes when I watch him, he takes care of the bees without any gloves on or anything, and I was kind of a chicken when it came to that. So when I was a beekeeper, and I say when because my little quick backstory about beekeeping is I had my own hives at home. I live in Caton, and bears got into them a couple times, and I didn't have an electric fence like I should have, and it turns out that I'm kind of allergic to bees. So my beekeeping career was not very long, but I'm still interested in them and all the things that they do. So I am going to show you a few things that we have in Tanglewood's library. So when we're back open, hopefully phase 4, crossing my fingers, you can come and visit us and check out what's going on in the bee world. They're really busy, and they've got a lot of work to do when I look at their hive. So one thing about the bees that we have right now at Tanglewood, they're actually my bees from my hives that I had last year, and thanks to another great beekeeper, Peter Maybaum and John Schlechter, we moved the bees from my house to the Tanglewood observation hive after they got attacked by a bear for like the second time, and they're doing okay. So let's look at the bees. I'm gonna flip this around here, and this is our observation hive, and I'll show you from afar. It's got, and this is actually a new hive that John made for us. Our other one was a little smaller, and this one's really cool. It's got 5 frames, which are these rectangular areas that the bees have some of their comb in, and then it's got a little tube that goes to the outdoors, and if you can look here, you can see daylight because our bees come and go. So they're actually, I always say to the kids, they're freebies. Sorry, that's really bad. But here they are coming and going from the tube that is attached, and then it goes into this little, I guess it's a piece of furniture that John fashioned, but and then they go up through the tube into this hive. And so when you look at all these bees are again, they're not outdoor bees, but they're free to come and go. But they stay here where they are because of their queen. And so most of these bees are girl bees, females, and there's a few males in there. Those are drones, but the bees are the worker bees. So all of these little things that are moving around really quickly are females that we can see. And I had the queen picked out before I started this, but of course she's allowed to move wherever she wants. Oh, but she's right there. Okay, right there. They're all looking at her. So if you see the bee in the center with a really big thorax and she's sitting pretty still. And she has a really long abdomen too, and they're all facing her. Oh, she's moving right now. So that's our queen bee. And maybe we'll get to see her lay an egg if we're lucky. Oh, she's actually stuck her abdomen in a hole. So that's what she's doing right now. She's laying thousands of eggs a day. That's all she does. And the girl bees that are all surrounding her, she just got done. That's how long it took to lay an egg. She finds an empty, clean hole and she lays an egg. And if you can see kind of close to her are some, the little white things that are sticking out. They're like white shiny things. Those are actually larvae in areas where she's already laid an egg, but she's looking for an empty cell to lay her eggs in. So she's moving around. So the girl bees make sure that she's fed and they make sure she's clean and she has everything she wants. So they're very attentive of her because she's really important. She makes all the new bees in the hive. So like I said, all the other little bees around her are worker bees, the females, and they just have the stripy bodies. They're little furry, little hairy, and they are insects. So they've got a head, a thorax, and abdomen, and around, and they have on their thorax, they have 6 legs attached. That's what insects have. And bees, like other insects, most other insects go through egg, larva, and pupal stage. So the queen is laying an egg, and if there's no way we're going to see it here, but if you were to see it, you would notice it was a really small, sort of looks like a piece of rice, not round. And then that egg hatches out into a little larva, which then grows. And the larva, some of them, you can see some of them in some of these cells. They're just they look like maggots. They're chunky, white, shiny things. And the workers that are nurse bees will feed those larvae until they're ready to pupate. And when they turn into a pupa, they cap off the cell. The workers cap off the cell and stop feeding the little pupa. Obviously, it's a little hard shell around it. And then it finishes growing in there and it chews its way out after it is done developing. And then it's a adult bee at that point, and it joins the other bees, and it has a duty, just like all the bees do. So all these workers, they have different jobs to do. This is it looks kind of maybe chaotic if you watch it, but if you pay attention really close, you'll notice that they're all doing a lot of interesting work. So the bees that are coming and going through this tube, those are usually the oldest bees in the hive, and those are the field bees. So they go out and they look for honey, or they look for nectar, and they look for pollen, and then they come back with it, the nectar in their honey stomach, and the pollen stuck to their back legs on the pollens where the pollen sacs are, and then also stuck to the hairy part of their body. And when they do come back, they do a little dance on the hive. So let's see if I can find a bee dancing. It basically just looks like, there's one going around in a circle. It's kind of like a figure 8. You see that one? And there's one that's waggling its bum right in the center. There's a lot of wagglers. So there's different dances that bees do, and it tells the other bees where the food is. So this little bee right in the center who's doing a dance, the little kids love to see them jiggle their bum. They come back and do the dance on the hive, and it tells the other bees that want to go out where exactly the best food is. So they can tell from the dance that they do, the direction that the food is, it's in relation to the hive and the sun, and how far it is away. And they even spit a little nectar out so other bees can sample it, and they'll know what kind of flowers they're looking for. So, bees are our main pollinators in the insect world, and animals pollinate 1/3, 1 out of every 3 bites of food that you eat are pollinated by animals, and mostly by honeybees. And you've probably heard all the problems that honeybees have had over time with the colony collapse disorder. And we think that colony collapse is related to a couple different things. It's related to pesticides, which weaken bees, and then it makes them more susceptible to disease. So we are always encouraging people to not, there's another dancer, to not, put anything on their yards to get rid of dandelions or other things that people consider weeds. And dandelions are really important. That's one of the first foods that bees get when they come out of their hive in the winter. So dandelions play a really important role in the bee cycle. So don't get rid of your dandelions, don't spray. And so if you look, I'll move up further because this up here gives us a better look at what the comb looks like. So the bees make all this wax, this comb, out of their own bodies. They have wax glands, and they actually pass the wax from bee to bee, and sometimes you can see a chain. It's really cool. They're very coordinated. But the hive, the frames start out as just a flat piece of plastic, and you can see actually there's a hole in that one because it's made to have that. And the bees build up on the plastic in the hexagonal shape, which is it's the most strong shape, and it also holds the most. And then they use those cells that they've made with their wax for different things. They use them to, again, you saw the queen laying eggs, and that's where their young grow up. And they also use the cells for placing their food. So that's where they have their honey and their pollen, and they put honey and pollen together and they make bee bread. And so it's pretty cool just to look around the hive and see what's going on in what area. You can even see where there might be girl bees versus boy bees too. So let me turn it around here because I think we had some, on this area, you can sort of see, it's hard to see 3D. Oh, my light went out, sorry. I gave myself 30 minutes and started early. So you can sort of see, like right in here are a bunch of sort of flat cells. So there's probably females growing under there because these workers are a little smaller than the males. The males are called drones. And the males are in sort of these areas where it looks like a muffin top, not really flat, but the top of a muffin. And so the males, the drones, they do have an important job. They are the ones that actually, when it's time, they leave the hive and they go out and kind of hang out in guy groups, and they wait for a queen to come so they can mate with her, because each new queen has to make a flight each year in order to be fertilized so she can lay all those eggs. So the bad thing for the drones is that once they mate, they explode and die. So I always think, please, I don't want to come back as a drone bee. I don't think, because that would be pretty tragic. But, and so they don't really do any other work. And this time of year, you won't see a ton of drones in here. I had one picked out before, but I don't know where he is. Oh, there's one. Oh, let me see if I can get him in the... So their drones are bigger than the workers, not as big as the queen. She's the biggest, but they have big eyes and a big thorax. I lost the drone. And they're not moving around much this time of year, especially. And so in the winter, when there's not very much food, the drones usually get taken out by the workers and removed. They won't let them eat because they really don't have a purpose. There's a drone right in the center. Sorry if it's a little blurry. So he's the dude who's sitting really still. He's kind of darker, and they're ignoring him mostly because he's not really doing anything. He might have a remote in his tiny little hand. No, I'm just kidding. He's hanging out there. And so, but you can see behind him, maybe you can see, oh, there's one of the little larvae. So let me see if I can get right in there underneath that bee. If you look, there's a little white larva curled up. So the whole thing with bees is their life is so, I could spend probably 45 minutes to an hour, I won't do that, talking to you about what's going on in here because there's so much going on. Everybody's got a job to do. Like I said, the ones that are going outside, which we got more coming and going, they love the beautiful warm days that aren't rainy. Those are the field bees. And then there's also bees in here who are the nurse bees. So they're the ones who take care of those little larvae. They feed them. And the first 3 days, they feed all the larvae, what is called royal jelly. And it's something only bees can make. Humans have tried to replicate royal jelly and they can't. It's got a bunch of really cool compounds in it that we haven't figured out what they are, some of them. And then they switch over to bee bread for the little larva. But the queen gets royal jelly her whole life. That keeps her strong. And there she is again. Oh, now you can see how long her abdomen is. Look how big she is and how attentive they are to her. And so she's looking for another place to lay an egg. She looks like she's having trouble right there, but hopefully she'll find an empty hole. There are a bunch, but there's not a lot of food stored in here, which I am going to feed them. I don't know if our beekeeper would be happy or sad about this, but I'm going to do it just so I can show you what he does, because you can supplement bees at different times of the year, and these bees are working furiously to catch up with the fact that they had some issues over the winter. So they need, you know, a certain amount of food in order to stay alive, just like anything. I'm just following the queen around here. So let me show you what happens when it's time to feed the bees. Everybody's always worried that these bees can like get out, but they can't. There's locks on these doors that actually that our beekeeper only knows the combo to. I don't know what it is, but and then we don't even need to unlock it to feed them. This is an empty bee feeding jar, and so you can take the jar off and it just screws off, and sometimes you'll see, oh, there's a bee in there waiting. She's like, where's the food? But obviously they can't get in here, and so I'm going to take the old jar that was in the refrigerator, and basically this is just sugar water and probably with a little bit of honey in it so they enjoy the taste, and this will help them. Oh, I can't do it like that. So we would flip it over and put it in place, but I gotta replace the top with the right top, so I guess I'm not gonna do that right now, but I'll do it after. So like I said, when one of the field bees goes and gets nectar, sips nectar out of a flower, it'll come back and it will share some of the food with the other bees, and the bees will pass it back and forth and sort of chew on it until it's a little bit more thick. And then they put it in one of the cells, and then they fan it a little, and then after that it becomes honey, and then they cap off the cell like with a wax cap so that it stays clean and they can come to it and use it when they want. And so there's some larvae there of the little white things. You can see they're a little curled up. There's the little cute baby bees. All right, maybe not that cute, but honey is really cool. Obviously, people love honey. Not everybody. It might be an acquired taste for some. I didn't like it when I was little, but I like it now. But honey colors and flavors are different, and some people are really connoisseurs of honey. And so I have some different honey here, and you can see all the different colors. So these two bears are ones that our beekeeper, John Schlechter, from his Big Flats house has made, and he collected them at different times of the year probably. So one's really dark and one's a lighter, and the color just has to do with whatever plant the nectar is from. And so we call this, he calls it wildflower honey, because it's just whatever the bees collect around his home in Big Flats and they bring back. And I think this one was more like Japanese knotweed or something, and this might have been collected maybe toward the fall, and it was maybe a lot of goldenrod. But there are beekeepers who are commercial beekeepers that can actually make sure their bees are foraging mostly from a certain plant. So they keep a certain plant within a couple miles for the most part. So this is alfalfa honey, and it's a little light. And this is buckwheat honey, which is pretty dark. And there's orange blossom honey, which does have kind of an orange tint. And this is avocado honey from California. And avocado farmers really rely on bees in order to pollinate their avocado trees, and they actually ship bees in from all around the country when it's time for pollination. So bees are not only important, obviously, because we like to eat and we need to eat, but also important commercially. And so how did we get these bees? It's not like we went outside and collected them, although some beekeepers do that when a hive swarms, you can do that. But where I got my bees from, which are these bees, I got them from a place in PA, Drapers. We love Drapers. So if you want to get your bees, if you want to become a beekeeper, Drapers has all the beekeeping things that you need, from bees themselves to all the tools and the garments you have to wear. And I'll get to the garments in just a second, but this is what the bees come in. So you order 3 pounds at a time. Usually you have to order it, I'm gonna turn this, you have to order it somewhere in I guess it doesn't work. You have to order it somewhere in the winter, and then they come somewhere in May, depending on what the weather's like, and the bees come in this container. And there's just some sugar water in this metal metal can, and then the queen is in here separate in this little cage, the queen cage, that has some candy, sugar candy as a cap. And when you bring them, all the workers that are in here are familiar with her, and they have a couple workers in there with the queen when she comes too. And then when you get home and put them on your hive, you basically just take the top off, take this off, and dump them in your hive, and then you put the queen in between your frames, and you sort of poke at the candy a little so that they can chew their way in when they're ready, so they can release her, and then all is good, you hope. So here's what a home beehive kind of looks like. This is not the best one. We've had this around for a long time, but if you're out driving in the country, you might see these boxes stacked up, and they're called supers, and they're different depths depending on, your hive and what you're trying to have in each section. But this is kind of a shallow super. But inside the supers are all these frames, and the frames actually usually have the plastic on them, which is the foundation for the bees to do to put their, like I showed you up there, to put their wax on. And so this is what's going on inside a beehive. This is what beekeepers are checking. And when you put the queen in, you put her between a couple of the supers, and you kind of, like I staple the container she's in to that. And then you're ready to go. And of course, there's a lot of things to do to be a beekeeper. Here's one of our, this is my old bee suit. I had to have the whole suit because I was a new beekeeper, and also I was allergic, but they managed to actually sting me through my veil, so that was not good. But there's so many awesome things that you have to get, and obviously, just like any hobby, it costs money, but it's totally worth it if you can keep it going. These gloves are gloves that you use, although John Schlechter does not use gloves when he's handling the bees, but he's been doing it for, like I said, a really long time. And so there's a lot of good books out there, too, if you're interested in bees. For children, I love this one. This is the Bee Book by Charlotte Milner. But you can look online and find all kinds of publications on bees. So this is our hive. And so it does go outdoors. And if you're walking around outside looking at the aviary, you can see the bees out there. Let me see. I want to see if I can see. I always have trouble finding. I forgot to ask Bridget, finding out like if there's any questions. Let me see if I can see. I'm going to work on it I'm going to get better at this. This is better than last time when I dropped the phone 3 times and couldn't actually, no, I don't see questions. So again, I'm sorry. Oh, I lost you for a second. I'm sorry. It said I lost poor internet connection, of course, just in the middle of my thing. So let me turn this around and finish up. So I'm sorry. I'll go in like I did last time and answer the questions that I see, if you had any, because I love bees. So hopefully you love bees too after this. All right, I lost internet connection again. I'm sorry, guys. I better say goodbye now before it happens again, because I want everybody to know I appreciate all of you, and thanks for those who stayed through this long broadcast, and we will see you again next week, which is Wednesday at noon. We're going to be doing our Facebook Lives, and if you're not already a member of Tanglewood, this is a great time to sign up for your membership, because we have the Community Foundation of Elmira Corning and the Finger Lakes is doing a match, a $25 match. So for every membership we get, up to 100 memberships, we get a $25 additional match. So please join as a member, and thanks everybody. Have a good day. Bye.